2013, Cole Hamels will take the mound inside the diamond he calls home. A commanding second half of the season performance has been highlighted by his domination in South Philadelphia. One last trip out to a familiar place for the series opener tonight against the Mets. Well, the last time that Big Ed will write the lineup in here at Citizens Bank Park for the Phillies or any other team, it's the last weekend of games here at Citizens Bank Park. Game 1 tonight against the New York Mets. The Phils begin play at 71 and 81. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy along with Chris Wheeler. It's the last time the Phillies will put their lineups in all around this ballpark this weekend. And it's also the last night that Cole Hamels will get a chance to pitch here in South Philadelphia.
And he's been so good, Tom, especially lately. And in this ballpark, Cole Hamels has been terrific. You go back a couple weeks ago when he pitched this game against the soon-to-be champion of the Eastern Division, Atlanta Braves, and he was great this Sunday afternoon. The only guy that hurt him was Gaddis, who hit those 2 monster home runs off him. Just a tremendous 8 innings, gave up 2 hits, just the 2 runs on the solo homers, had 9 strikeouts, and was really dealing in this game with all his pitches. This is the way he's been for months on end this year. And he's even started to win some games. The Phillies have won quite a few of his starts lately, and Cole Hamels himself has been picking up wins because he has been so dominant in these games. You look at his last 8 starts in this ballpark, under 2 pitching at Citizens Bank Park. That's just amazing. And going 7+ innings in all of them. So, yeah, as you said, Tommy, this is his last one this year in this ballpark, and you just expect him to pitch well everywhere, but especially here.
Remarkable 49 base runners in 60 innings of work in those starts here at Citizens Bank Park. That's outstanding. And you find him in the leaderboard for the National League in pitching since the All-Star break in just about every category. So it is game 1 of this 3-game series, the Phils and the New York Mets. DAISUKE MATSUZAKA, who's also been better lately for the Mets, he'll make the start for New York. It's his 6th of the year, and of course for Hamels, it's his 32nd of the season. Well, one guy who he's familiar with, one guy who's tearing it up against left-handers, David Wright, is back in the lineup for the first time since the first week of August for the Mets. We'll get to those lineups in the first pitch when we return. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Anheuser-Busch. A reminder from Budweiser, great times are waiting. Designated driver. By Toyota. Toyota's nationwide clearance event is going on now. Toyota, let's go places. By Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phillies. By Citizens Bank, where good banking is good citizenship. Isn't it time you experience good banking? And by Independence Blue Cross, the most preferred health plan in the region. Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. New York Mets, just 3 games left here in the regular season at Citizens Bank Park. It's the last chance for the fans to get a look at Cole Hamels here in Philadelphia. He will start on the road for the Phillies. And these last 3 days, the last chance to look at some of the youngsters like Cody Ashley or even Chase Utley, who's having a great month of September so far for the Phillies. Taking on a New York Mets team that's kind of free-falled a little bit since the last time the Phillies saw them. The Phillies' lead over the Mets is 3 in the loss column. Phillies sitting in 3rd place in the National League East, and the Mets sitting in 4th place. The head-to-head between the two. The Phillies 9-7 so far against the Mets, and you know, you look at the numbers, and I guess you could say in certain categories they're comparable. Phillies have hit more home runs than the Mets have by 6. The pitching, you know, it's kind of a wash. The starters for the Phils a little bit better than the starters for the Mets, but the bullpen for the Mets has been better than the Phillies bullpen.
Yeah, they've been both teams. The Phillies have had a very, very difficult season. Everybody knows around here. The Mets, I don't know what anybody expected from them this year. They may have been a little bit better than you thought they were going to be there for a while. And then the injuries, especially losing a guy like David Wright for almost 2 months. And they had so many different guys go down with injuries this year that it'd be pretty hard for them to compete and do anything. But they said at the beginning of the year, I don't think anybody expected much from them anyway.
Let's take a look at the Mets starting lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. Leading it off in left field, Eric Young. Daniel Murphy, the second baseman, bats second. Hitting third is David Wright, followed by Josh Satin and Andrew Brown. Juan Lagares, the center fielder, bats sixth. And the bottom third of Darno, Quintanilla, and DAISUKE. Hitting ninth, of course, in pitching. And they'll face Phillies left-hander Cole Hamels, 8-13 on the year, but an earned run average of 3.48.
Well, his numbers are outstanding. And Tom talked about the lack of base runners at the beginning of the show tonight. Well, those walks at 48, and you go back and see how many of them were early in the season. Quite a few of them. His command's been tremendous. Our Budweiser scouting report on him. There's these career numbers against the New York Mets. He had a lot of starts against them, and very few of them, when you get right down to it, have been here in Philadelphia. He started more times against them in New York by a wide margin. And he's had command of his fastball, I'd say, for 4 months now, 3 to 4 months. Real good command of it. And as a result, it just set up everything else. And his walks are way down because of that.
Well, speaking of starting pitching, Murph has an update on Kyle Kendrick that we found out earlier today. Murph?
Well, that's right, Tom. We've been telling you over the last couple of days that he had an MRI, and the news was good when he got the MRI, but went to New York for a second opinion, and after being seen by a second doctor, everybody involved has decided that Kyle Kendrick's season is over. They're going to shut him down and let him try to get healthy during this offseason. So Kyle Kendrick will not start again for the Phils. His remaining 2 starts. Instead, Zach Miner will fill in for him. So we've seen the last of Kyle Kendrick this year. Like I said, the news, when they looked at that MRI, it wasn't bad news. There was nothing really of severe damage inside that shoulder, but they're just being very cautious at this time of the season. And so Kyle is done for the year, guys. All
right, Murph, we appreciate that. It's sorry to see that. You know, it's always good to finish strong. In fact, Cole Hamels has talked about that you want to finish strong, particularly if you have struggled, and obviously Hamels has not struggled since the All-Star break. Kyle has, and kind of hoped he was able to get a couple more starts in him before he said goodbye to 2013. Eric Young leads it off. Young was 6 for 44 in the most recent homestand for the Mets. It was a long one, and he takes outside. It's 1 ball and 1 strike to Young.
Done a pretty good job for them since he come over here. He can run, steal bases. That's quite a few doubles.
Overall, 248 with the Mets, 246 for the season. Had a ground ball foul, 1 and 2.
24 doubles and 7 triples. So there were 31 extra base hits, throwing a couple home runs too. So and he's stolen 39 bases. So this is a guy that has done a pretty good job. Now, whether he fits into their plans, their outfield's a little bit of a mess.
1-2 pitch from Hamels. Out towards shallow right field. On the run is Mayberry, and it is a diving attempt. It's a fair ball. He dropped it, and Young's on his way to second. Unfortunately, John was in fair territory when he made an attempt at that ball, and according to Mark Ripperger, the first base umpire, it was a fair ball all the way.
And it's double 25. It's a good effort there as he dives for it.
It's a fair ball.
Absolutely a fair ball by plenty. And as it turns out, he probably should have caught it because it was right in the pocket of the glove and unfortunately popped out.
So a runner at second here in the top of the first. And here's Daniel Murphy. Chris Guccione's behind the plate. Phil Cuzzy at second. Ron Culpa is the crew chief. He's around at third. And of course, Ripperger, the young umpire, over at first. Young's running toward third. Ruiz's throw is not in time. I don't know if Cole took a blink back at him or not, but he got a great jump, and it's his 40th steal of the year.
They usually don't go with nobody out, but in that case, it was so easy that Young decides to steal. So there he goes with 25 doubles and 40 stolen bases. Now that one's certainly on Cole Hamels. He gave no chance for Carlos Ruiz to throw him out. Now Murphy really has a gimme RBI here on a ground ball. And this guy's hit a lot of doubles.
71 RBIs this year for Daniel Murphy, 9 for 30 against Hamels. And he hits one back toward the middle, and the Mets will take a 1-0 lead. So an RBI single for Murphy.
Murphy's 8th in the league in doubles with 36 as Young scores the first run of the ball game.
And that'll bring David Wright, who's playing in his first game since the 3rd of August. He was battling a hamstring issue that kept him out since then. 309 overall with 16 home runs and 54 runs batted in. And a fastball outside, 1-0. Hamels is trying to win his 100th game of his career. There are currently 32 pitchers, active pitchers, in the major leagues with 100 wins or more. Out toward right field, that's well hit. Mayberry's going back out to the scoreboard, and it's a 3-0 Mets lead. An opposite field home run for David Wright. A double, a single, and now a home run. So David Wright's first at bat since being placed on the disabled list on the 3rd of August is a 2-run home run.
Yeah, they're a lot better looking team with David Wright out there, that's for sure. And he and Hamels had a lot of battles over the years. Wright started to come back as a player the last season or so when he started to do this again. Hit the ball the other way. That's where he was really good. Of course, in his ballpark, home ballpark, that's just a big, long fly ball out. And before they brought the fences in, it was really an out. And that's what drove him crazy about that place, because it's so deep in right center field. Here it's not.
So 17 home runs for Wright. And an early lead for the Mets. Here's Josh Satin. Satin hitting .285 with 2 homers and 15 runs batted in.
It's just very unlike what's been going on with Hamels. And 2 of the balls hit really hard. Obviously, Murphy's in that one. The first one, you know, was a nice effort by John Mayberry, but when you saw where it was in his glove, it should have been an out. And that got the whole thing started.
Now the 0-2 pitch. Opposite way, out of play. Swing and a miss, and there's one out. Strikeout number 189 on the season for Hamels as he creeps closer to 1,500 for his career. And that'll bring Andrew Brown to the plate. Andrew Brown just 3 hits in the month of September. 3 for 30 for the Mets. Got a ground ball left side. Ashe charges. He'll have time. And he can't get out of his glove, so Brown will be safe at first. And that's probably going to be an error charge to Ashe. It'll be his 5th of the year.
And not playing very good defense there in the first inning either. Mets jump out to quick 3-0 lead. And this is a play Ashe can make easily. And he just keeps bobble, 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 bobble. And no chance, even on a guy that doesn't run very well. Right there. He was on the transfer as much as anything. It looks like he gloved it. When you see that really cool slow-mo replay there, you can see he gloved it, and in the transfer he started to struggle.
And now Lagares, 251 with 4 home runs. He also has had a very tough month of September, and he bunts toward third, and that'll roll foul.
He has really torn up the Phillies in the games that he's played against them this year, and he is one of those guys who will bunt for a hit. How about that is his 33rd attempt.
Wow.
He does have 7 bunt hits. Remember that the last time the Phillies played the Mets, that was a pretty high number.
Outside, 1 ball and 1 strike. Lagares 3 for 39 during the month of September. But as we said, and Wheels mentioned it, he has good numbers against the Phillies, including 5 hits against Hamels.
Tremendous numbers. The guy they mentioned, their outfit's kind of a mess right now. They really don't know what they're going to do. And for a while they were looking at this guy as maybe he's our center fielder because he's so good out there. He can really run it down. He can throw. But now he's going into this major offensive funk. So who knows?
Change up to a 2. Terry Collins, there's no reports yet as to whether he's coming back next year. A lot of folks think he will. I think he's done a pretty good job with this team. All the changes they've had. Now the 2-2 pitch. Off the hands, a looper out towards center. Hernandez on the run, and he makes the catch. And he might have had a chance to get the runner at first, but couldn't get the ball out of his glove. What's going on with the gloves tonight?
Well, they got some glue in them or something. That's some run and play he just made.
Sure is.
And there's a lot of center fielders that are center fielders don't catch that because on a jammer like that on a full swing they break back. Watch how jump he gets here. That's a jammer, and he's on the move almost immediately, then just outruns it, and then he gets caught in the transfer there too. He would have had a heck of a chance of a double play, but that ball left the bat, and you could see by Hamels' body language he thought, oh no, that's a dunker, and it appeared it was going to be.
Well, here's Travis d'Arnaud, who's basically been the everyday catcher for the Mets since they traded John Buck back to the Pirates, or over to the Pirates, not back to the Pirates. And he struggled offensively. Again, he's young. Former Phillies prospect, who they traded to the Blue Jays for Roy Halladay. Ground ball to shortstop. Rollins is there. They'll go the short way to second. The side is retired. 3-run score in the inning for the Mets. A double, a single, and a 2-run home run by David Wright, making his return to the New York Mets lineup the opposite way. Wright, like Utley and Howard, they've hit a lot of home runs against teams within the National League East, and that's just another. Park. Folks out at Ashburn Alley looking like they are enjoying themselves. Let's take a look at the Phillies starting lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. Leading it off at center field, Cesar Hernandez. Jimmy Rollins bats second. Chase Utley hits third, followed by Carlos Ruiz and Dominic Brown. Darren Ruff, the first baseman, hits sixth. In the bottom third of Ashe, Mayberry, and Cole Hamels. And they will face right-hander Daisuke Matsuzaka, who's ready to make his sixth start in a Mets uniform. His last two have been very good. His first three were, well, terrible. Yeah. And they took a long time to complete.
Yeah, they were terrible. In fact, they were just, everybody, including people doing their games, are saying, what's he doing out there? Here's your Budweiser scouting report, and there's probably more pitches that we can't even think of. But this guy truly goes out there and makes it up as the game goes along. He's a real professional, and you see how subtle he is right there, just bending over, touching his toes like it's nothing. Cole Hamels tallying off there for a tough first inning for him. But Matsuzaka used to throw really hard. Right now, a lot of fastballs, curveballs, and 3, 4, 5, 6 other pitches.
They say he has picked it up as far as his pace goes. Last time he faced the Phillies on the 28th of August, he allowed 6 hits, 4 runs in 4 1/3. And those 4 1/3 took a long time.
Threw 110 pitches in 4 1/3 innings.
Foul ball. It's 0-2 to Hernandez.
That'll take a long time when you consider his delivery. His delivery goes in segments. You got to give the guy credit. The way he looked for 3 starts, and now that he's been able to put it together a little bit, shows you what a professional he is. There's that talking about how it's in segments. And he can be very deceptive to a hitter, too, because he really throws the timing off.
His first 3 games, he allowed 15 earned runs in 12 1/3. Last 2 games, 2 earned runs in 12 2/3. And now the 1-2 pitch coming to Cesar Hernandez. And a curveball, and he's down on strikes. And there's one away.
Last time out, 51% fastballs and 25% curveballs. So here's a delivery. Now watch, he basically just stops. Now the hitter right now is trying to get in some kind of a timing mode. He stops at the top, literally will stop. Everything's finished. We didn't freeze frame that. This is in real time, in slow-mo real time. And here he comes. Meanwhile, the hitter's down there going, will you throw the thing?
Jimmy Rollins gets a fastball, and he pulls it towards second. And there are 2 outs. Matsuzaka spent 6 years with the Red Sox. He won 50 games. 50 and 37 in 117 games. 116 starts for the Sox. Spent most of this year at AAA with the Cleveland Indians organization.
19 starts in Columbus for them.
Chase 6 for 14 on the homestand so far. He had a really good series against the Marlins. And he takes one at the knees. Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Patricia Mahoney of Gloucester. Phillies hit a home run at tonight's ball game, and Patty will win $200.
And you watch how he gets the timing of Utley off, because you know how Chase likes to just make that little move and the guy throws it. Well, he doesn't know when to start with him. See, right there. Now, here we go.
And Utley pulls it foul past Wally Joyner. Well, the good news is Utley has faced him before, albeit just 8 at-bats.
Well, when Matsuzaka was really throwing well a few years ago, he almost pitched a no-hitter in this ballpark on a Saturday evening game. Went into the 8th inning with a no-hitter.
In the dirt, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
And Juan Castro, who became famous for a couple things here for the Phillies, broke that up. Of course, he had the last play of Doc's perfect game, the ground ball to third.
Two as that splitter goes low. Utley's hit 3 straight. His average is up to 279 with 18 home runs and 68 runs batted in. And he got him. He threw him a sinker. And Utley is struck out, and the side is retired. No runs, no hits, and nobody left. Phillies go down in order. We'll go to the second with the Mets on top 3-0. Park. Tickets are still available for the Phillies and the Mets. The final game here at Citizens Bank Park in 2013. All the prizes and surprises that you're used to with a final home game. And all fans receive the 2014 schedule magnet, compliments of Independence Blue Cross. You can order tickets at Phillies.com. Omar Quintanilla leads it off. He was 2 for 10 on the homestand for the Mets. Now Hemmels takes a step back off the mound. Hemmels with 1 strikeout in the first inning. And he has 1,496 for his career.
Yeah, trying to do things tonight. Get the 100th win and 1,500th strikeout.
Ground ball back to the mound. And there's one of those.
No comebacker right off the end of the bat. Quintanilla looked like he threw a little cutter. Was going away from him. Easy play.
And here comes Matsuzaka, who's hitting 286 this year. He's just he only has 7 at bats. He's 2 for 7.
Only has 21 his whole career. 194 for 21. There's his career numbers with 2 runs batted in.
Gets that one sharply to short. And Rollins can walk it over if he wanted to. Tonight's game is also available in Spanish. Just use the SAP button on your television or change the language through the menu on your cable box. Ricky Ricardo to the right, Bill Kulick to the left, and a whole bunch of bobbleheads to the left of Bill.
They decorate that place.
It's like a studio, like a workroom.
It's very cozy when you go in there. Homey. Unfortunately, they have to clean it out once in a while when other venues use that booth. It takes a while too.
There's Eric Young Jr. He doubled his first time up and scored. It's 0-1. Oh, see, I thought you were talking about Sarge bringing food in.
Well, that's another thing over the years. They've had some real feasts in there. Boy, that's a real pitcher's glove right there. That big one. They love those big gloves. Pitchers help hide the ball.
So hitters don't know what pitch they're throwing. They can move it around. Nobody will be able to tell.
They want to be able to reach in and see things too much. And pitchers have always been known to use great big gloves like that. It'd be tough for a position player to use a glove like that. Maybe an outfielder.
A little low. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Young. To that double that Young picked up his last time up. He's now 8 for 18 against Cole Hamels in his career. Another foul ball, and it remains 2-2.
Throw him a lot of fastballs in this at bat. Fastballs that are in a little bit. Maybe throw him change up away now.
Tried another fastball.
And he's not on it, but he's fouling it off. It's almost like he's trying to protect for off speed, which is not a great way to go against Hamels, because his fastball can be tough to foul off.
And now 3-2. That was a cutter. Toyota Major League Scoreboard. Boy, what a big series going on between the Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're at the top of the 2nd inning, and the Pirates have jumped out to a 2-1 lead. Just imagine that the score's up there.
Yeah, I think Tabata and Walker hit home runs. Watching some replays up there on the screen. Then they had 1st and 2nd and nobody out, and didn't get anything else after that. They could have had a real big 1st inning.
It's a whopper of a pitching matchup too. Matt Latos on the mound for the Reds against Francisco Liriano for the Pirates.
Liriano pitching right now.
And a foul tip, and another strikeout for Hamels. Number 2, he won the battle against Eric Young, and the side is retired. 5 consecutive hitters retired by Cole, 1.5 in the books. Carlos Ruiz will lead it off when we come back. Performance from rapper Sean Kingston. All the stars come out on the Arsenio Hall Show tonight after Action News at 10 right here on PHL 17. Bottom of the 2nd, it's 3-0. That's on top.
Daisuke did look like a different guy in that 1st inning. Much more confident in his pitches, and just kind of carved him up. The first 3 hitters got Jimmy Rollins on 1 pitch, and and did a real good job mixing them up with the other two hitters in that inning. Hernandez and Utley, the left-handed hitter, two more left-handed hitters.
From what everybody is saying, that's what he has been doing these last couple of starts.
It's amazing how you could struggle the way that he did, and then all of a sudden just go back into the memory bank and do what he did. But it just shows you what a professional he is and how guys like this can make it up sometimes.
It's odd to say, but Carlos Ruiz was 1 for 13 against the Miami Marlins. I say it was odd to say because he hit some balls really hard.
Oh, yeah. And he was so hot.
Outside corner, and it's 1-1. Ball, and that's out to right field. Playable for Andrew Brown. And a few steps from the track, he puts it away, 1 out. During the 2013 season, Turkey Hill will contribute $100 for each Phillies victory and 5 cents for each carton of Phillies Grand Slam ice cream sold to support the Phillies youth baseball and softball programs.
On our Bloomberg sheet tonight on Daisuke Matsuzaka, looks like a kid's coloring book because they have different colors for every pitch a guy throws. They get 6 different colors on this thing.
All right, Wills, you got to hold it up for everybody to see because it's
unbelievable. You rarely see anything like this.
It's extremely colorful. Dominic Brown is behind no balls and 1 strike. And it's 0-2. All right, this is what Wheels is talking about. This is some of the stuff we get. Look at all the colors.
It's unbelievable.
Traditionally, there's not that many colors.
3.
All the way down here.
4, maybe.
All the way down here.
Not 6.
Up here. Look, they even had to go to maroon right there.
Yeah.
They don't often go to maroon.
Seen colors on there you never see.
So we use this from Bloomberg Stats. They do a great job providing us with some extra information that we use often.
And it's so accurate, it's scary.
1 out single. That's the first hit of the night for the Phils. And here's Darin Ruf. Darin Ruf was 4 for 12 of the series against the Marlins. Outside, 1-0. Two balls and no strikes.
Darin Ruf needs it to hang one of those low 70-mile-per-hour curveballs right in the middle of the plate like that. A little bit middle in.
Two balls and 1 strike.
Fastball is going to average somewhere around 88, 89. Maybe tops out at 90.
There's Dave Brundage working the lines at third for Juan Samuel. We mentioned on Wednesday night Juan is attending to a personal family matter.
Dave said he thought that Juan will be back later tonight. Should be back coaching third tomorrow.
3 balls and 1 strike to Ruf.
We noticed you were out there. You're a little taller.
He is a little taller.
Yeah.
But he is not the fastest.
No. But he sure can give signs because he's used to coaching third as a minor league manager. So the guys got to get used to his pace the other night. They all do it differently.
Ball 4, so 2 on with 1 out. And Cody Ashley is coming up. Attention physical education teachers and after-school program leaders. Phillies Fitness is provided by NovaCare Rehabilitation, and the program provides free tip booklet, posters, and the chance to receive a Phillies Fitness workout session. Get fit as you learn about nutrition and fun exercises. Email FanDev, D-E-V, at Phillies.com for more information. Cody Ashe, 1 for 8 in the series against the Marlins. Swing and a miss at a cutter. It's 0-1. Ashe overall hitting .263 with 5 home runs and 21 runs batted in.
Playing a little bit towards left center. Big gap in right center field. A little surprising with all this off-speed stuff that Matsuzaka is featuring. Hard thrower, you might say, all right, we'll shade him over that way, a little bit of left-handed hitter. But he's throwing fairly slow, a lot of his pitches, and he's also coming towards middle end to these right-handed hitters. Big alley out there.
Off the foot of Cody Ashe.
Ow. They go that far. See, he's in some serious pain right now. Jones gave him a little trouble there. Had a little time there. Home plate umpire. That plate does not need dusting. They try to find some things to do to help out.
One ball and 2 strikes to Ashe. And the pitch from DAISUKE. Fouled it back. Tried to sneak a fastball. That's the hardest fastball he's thrown tonight at 91 miles per hour.
See, Ashe does a lot of things that remind you of Chase Utley, the way he plays the game, the way he tries to play the game. Well, that's another thing that Chase Utley does. It's like it didn't hurt. And it hurt. Go ahead, throw it in there again. I'll foul it off my guy. I don't care.
Ground ball foul. It remains 1-2. Pete Mickelson just picked that up and threw it into the crowd. Bill Egbert is down there, and it hit him in our camera well. But I think Eggie's all right. There's Eggie with the green hat. Pete's to the right. Eggie's to the left. That's Eggie. It hit him right in the leg, but he's durable.
Durable. He's from Bonner. Of course he is.
Out of play, and it remains 1-2.
He'll get his 50th anniversary coming up too. Class reunion.
Oh really?
Yep, Bonner. His 63 class. There's the Monsignor Bonner cap.
Loyal. Just see the cap. It's like the camera's wearing a cap.
There it is. Cap's running that camera.
It's like one of the old bullpen cars. Come on, Murph.
Could look like.
If Murph had a fishing net, he would have been able to come up with that one. Just bring a fishing net next time.
Even a first baseman's glove, I think I could have gotten that.
Really?
Oh, really big one.
Like the one the Fanatic wears?
Exactly, like his.
He had Cole Hamels' glove. Well, they're certainly throwing a lot of stuff that he's pulling foul right now. That's my point about that big alley in right center field. It's wide open to pull the ball. Look at that.
One ball, 2 strikes to Ashe. Fouled fouls. Another one away.
Darno went out to talk. Darno went out there to talk to him. Maybe that was to finally throw something away. Going about 2 pitches in this at bat away to Cody, and he's fouled him off in that direction. But for the most part, everything's coming towards him.
This will be the 9th pitch coming in this at bat, and the 19th in the inning. Curveball swung out and missed. Thought maybe he got a piece of it, but nope, it was in the dirt. 3 strikeouts for Matsuzaka, and that'll bring Mayberry to the plate.
And he just kept throwing off-speed pitches, maybe a fastball away, and then throws another big old spinner up there. Just couldn't time it.
Well, now Mayberry was 2 for 5 in the series against the Marlins. His average at .230, 11 home runs. The 11th came against the Marlins. 39 runs batted in. Oh boy, that ball really moved. You see that curveball move?
Yeah, that's what he does. He's been throwing a lot of them, and they have a lot of movement to it. That one looked like it was not going to get the inside corner, like it was going to loop the plate. But it's got some serious bite to it.
Yeah, that's a slider. That's not a curveball. But it was breaking, wasn't it? Oof.
Yeah.
The curveball's more loopy, although both are in the 70s most of the time. One mid, one high. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fastball line to left field. Eric Young is there, and he makes the catch. He hit it hard, but Young was able to track it down, and the side is retired. No runs, 1 hit, and 2 men left. We've completed our first 2 innings. The Mets hold a 3-0 lead. CottonPhillies.com. Go to the fans section for all the information, and please submit your answer on the subject line. All right, well, Wheels, here's the question. Who holds the Mets single-season rookie record for hits with 146? Huh. You know what you're going to say when you see this? You're going to say, I did not know that. I would never have expected it.
So in other words, forget it. I got no shot.
You have no. Well, after I give you a hint, and I have 2 of them that I will give you, you will get it.
All right. Well, obviously, I saw him play.
You did see him play.
Because they came into existence at a time where I would have seen a lot of their games since then. What was their first year, 62?
Yeah, you did see him play in a variety of uniforms.
Okay.
Including a Phillies uniform.
Is that right?
Yeah. All right, that's one of the hints I was going to give you. Daniel Murphy takes strike 1 as we begin the top of the 3rd.
Something about there's two guys they got in that Max Scare steal. Might be one of them. Well, we'll come back to it later. In the 7th.
Breaking ball outside, 1 ball and 1 strike. Daniel Murphy singled and scored his first time up. He drove in the first run. Wheels mentioned he has 36 doubles this year. So that gives him 51 extra base hits.
He's a good hitter. No, he's not a power hitter, but he's a good hitter. He's hit the Phillies a lot over the years with multiple hit games. The thing is, they really have never found a position that he stands out at. And they play him at second, and he does what he can do.
Another one back toward the middle and another base hit.
That's the kind of hitter he is. He'll use the middle of the field there against a left-hander.
So he's aboard with the 4th hit for the Mets, and that'll bring David Wright to the plate.
Here's David Wright. It's a fly ball home run his first time up. He and Cole Hamels have faced each other so many times, and they really get involved in a tremendous guessing game when they face each other. And you know, he was happy he hit that here.
5 home runs now against Hamels.
Yeah, and he now has 18 home runs here and 60 RBIs in the city of Philadelphia. Did he play at the Vet? No. So they're all here in this park.
They're all here.
Yeah, they're all in this park. Yeah. I remember when he came up.
Hamels just questioned Phil Cuzzi, the home plate umpire, on that pitch. And I'm sorry, not Phil Cuzzi, Chris Guccione. It was a pretty good pitch, but I guess Guccione thought a little inside. That ball's hit out to left. It's not deep. Long run for Dominic Brown. Here he comes and makes the sliding grab. And Murphy will go back to first. 1 out. That ball may have fooled him a little bit just because of the swing.
Well, he took that big swing and he got jammed a little bit. And your first reaction is to freeze or go back when a guy like Wright swings, especially on the pull side. So he makes a nice job to come on and catch that. Goes into the slide.
Here's Satin, who struck out his first time up.
That's over the years have really run crazy on Hamels. And Murphy does have 19 stolen bases in 22 attempts, so they move over there. Almost had a lot of stuff coming forward there before he threw that over. But he has to do something to slow them down, to do something to change, because they know what's coming.
Fastball away, 1-0.
He did something with a little higher leg kick that time. Something with the leg kick looked a little bit different.
There he goes. Pitch is low. The throw to second by Ruiz not in time. He really had no chance. Murphy nearly stumbled off the bag.
You see how they know when Cole Hamels is coming home. There's just something that he does that they picked up a long time ago. And no matter what Hamels does to try and change it, it's not working. The first move, he's gone. And he's not like he's a fast runner, but he got such a big jump that Ruiz has no shot. And then he almost stumbled off the bag. Yeah, that's another thing he needs to do is, of course, one out like that, turn around and run him back. Again. Now he's really aware of it. This team, I got to think you go back over the numbers, and no team has stolen more bases on Cole Hamels than the Mets. And Reyes used to just drive him crazy with it. Meanwhile, all this is going on. He goes 3-0 on a hitter.
They're trying to keep Murphy close. There's a strike, 3-1. Andrew Brown on deck.
Well, they have Murphy very aware of the fact they could do a spin move on him right now. So that's another thing that'll keep him from trying to steal third base.
Ground ball left side. That'll get Murphy over to third, but there will be 2 outs. Rollins makes the play over to first. A reminder for Budweiser, great times are waiting. Designated driver. I don't know if Josh Satin got hurt or not on that, but it took him a long time to get to the top step of that dugout, didn't it?
Yeah.
Good fastball, and it's 0-1. Well, I think he just decided that he was going to take his frustrations out on time.
He's beating himself up there.
Yeah. Doesn't look fleet of foot. Maybe there is something bothering him. Grounder foul over Tim Tuffle. Tim used the dip instead of the sway to get out of the way.
Right, and then he doesn't mean to lose his balance either. But that happens to get to a certain point in life. You have more of a tendency when you do things to lose your balance, like right there.
You don't think he meant to do that?
I don't think so.
Late on that pitch, and it's fouled off the front of the Phillies dugout. Trickling toward Murph and then stopping.
He's trying to be a little cooler than that. Tuffle was a pretty good player. Good extra man. Could hit left-handed pitching.
Little bloop over toward the right side. Darren Ruff can't make the play, and a run scores. That's just bad luck right there. RBI single for Andrew Brown.
It's like some of the stuff that was happening to him when he was losing all those games early in the year. Makes a really quality pitch. Cuts it right in on him. Breaks his bat. Ruff trying to make the over-the-shoulder catch and doesn't get near it. Hitting an RBI. Look at that thing spinning.
Just the 4th hit in the month for Brown. And here comes Juan Lagares. He fly to short center his first time.
Shows you how that stolen base factored into a run, though. You don't steal second base, right flies out, and the ball that Satin hits a double play ball. The inning's over. If he hits the same ball, but the odds are you keep him at first base, some good things are going to happen. And he just has trouble with these guys with the way they run on him.
Swing and a miss. He gets him with a curveball. Strikeout number 3 for Hamels. A run does score. And a little bloop to right. Daniel Murphy helps give the Mets, a 4-0 lead. Not worth driving, it's not worth building. By Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phillies. And by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most innovative lineup ever. Shop ChooseNissan.com. Last of the third, and the Phillies trail at 4-0. They'll send Cole Hamels and then the top of the order to the plate. 9-1-2 here in the bottom of the third. Daisuke Matsuzaka had a lengthy second, but the Phillies didn't score. So now Hamels, who has 10 hits and 52 at-bats. First pitch is a strike, 0-1.
It looks like he can throw that curveball for a strike when he wants to. Really has a lot of confidence in it. And then he looks like he can throw another one that he can bounce. I'm talking about this guy makes it up as he goes along. Changes speeds.
Well, he looks totally different than what the Phillies saw earlier this season. One out, we go back to the top of the order with Cesar Hernandez. Daisuke getting a chance with the New York Mets because of injuries, Murph, to their starting rotation.
Yeah, and one of the big ones, of course, was Matt Harvey, who went down a couple of weeks ago with a partially torn ligament in his elbow, the UCL ligament in his elbow. And, you know, we've been kind of following the story all along to whether or not he's going to have surgery or is going to rehab it. Earlier this week, Matt Harvey and the team decided that he is going to indeed try to forego having surgery and work back and do the rehab part of it and see if he can avoid that Tommy John surgery. You see the numbers this year, just tremendous strikeout to walk ratio. he's a real power pitcher. He was very, very special when out on the mound this year, and certainly a big part of the Mets' future. It will be interesting to see if he's going to be able to come back and rehab that partially torn. Obviously, if it was fully torn, you have the surgery right away. But he wants to give it a chance and see if he can't work back without getting cut onto. So, he said he's going to give it a couple of months and see how he does. And if there's any red flags along the way, then he'll have the surgery. But it's a good chance he doesn't pitch most of the season next year as well, though, guys.
Yeah, in fact, you think about the recovery time. Most pitchers take a year and then more. They take a year to get back on the mound and then more to get everything back. So as we mentioned about a week or so ago, that if he decides to have it in the off season, he was probably going to miss 2014 anyway. There's a swing and a miss, and Hernandez has struck out for the second time. But I remember being up in New York when they announced that. We were there, and just even the reaction from some of the Phillies players, like Michael Young at the time. You never want to hear anybody go down with an injury of that severity, and we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what he does, as Murph said, because there's probably other guys who are looking at it to see what they may do in the future.
Well, Matt Harvey's good for the game. He's not good for the hitters when they're up there because he's so overpowering and so good, and he has out pitches. But for the whole sport, you want to have guys like Matt Harvey, and you'd love to have them pitching in a big market like New York too.
Off the end of the bat, a little dribble to third. Right, hurries the throw. In time. Looked like Rollins had beaten that one. The putout goes 5-3. I think Jimmy thinks that he beat it. I think Wally Joyner thinks the same, but the Mets still lead the Phillies 4-0 as we go to the fourth. WB Mason can handle any mess. For an all-star selection of cleaning supplies, go to WBMason.com. Place your order by 11:30 and receive your delivery that same day. 3 in the books. We go to the top of the fourth. It'll be Darno, Quintanilla, and Daisuke Matsuzaka against Cole Hamels, who's allowed 4 runs on 5 hits so far. Darno ended the first inning with a fielder's choice, and he takes outside. It's 1-0. Phillies come into this game with a record of 9-7 during the month of September. Ryan Sandberg's team is playing above 500 since he took over on the 16th of August. Mets, meanwhile, have not played above the 500 mark here in the month of September, which is why the Phillies have the lead over them in the division. Phillies are in third, Mets are in fourth. Out of play, 2-2. Well, obviously, Hamels is fighting Guccione right now, Sarge.
Yeah, you can always tell when he wants a pitch. I think, too, though, a bigger deal for the New York Mets as opposed to the Phillies in terms of third and fourth place, simply because the Phillies have had a lot more success.
Well, Darnell with the little flare to center field after that close pitch. So he has a leadoff single here in the fourth inning. Well, here's the two teams' record by month. We said the Mets are under 500 during September at 6-12. And the Phillies are at 9-7.
Well, obviously, I mean, none of the records are really great at all, mediocre at best.
Yep.
That's why they're playing the way that they are. Yeah, the other thing, too, the Mets, and not just the New York Mets, a lot of clubs measure themselves, or at least they had been, on how their club is by playing the fighting fields and how they did against it.
That's not necessarily the case anymore, is it?
Not at all the last couple of years. And when you talk with a lot of the different instructors, they would tell you that the fighting fields used to come in and intimidate clubs, meaning that they were just going to beat them up. Everybody could feel that, including their instructors.
Aaron Ruff will get the out at first. That's it. Quintanilla goes up to second.
But right now, that's just not happening, and you want to get back to that. Simply, again, it makes it easier to win ball games when the other team is afraid of you, and that's exactly the way the Cubs felt against the Phillies.
Here's DAISUKE. He grounded out his first time up. He grounded out to Rollins at short. Outside, 1-0. Darno at second, one out here in the fourth.
Didn't know whether or not he was going to actually get that pitch called. That's a good pitch. Oh, Cole, one of those guys, doesn't want to umpire giving him anything. Just doesn't want anything taken away from him with his pitches. Well, again, he's setting up those hitters. Different pitchers, have them in different locations.
1-2 strikes now to Matsuzaka. And he got him with a curveball. That's the fourth strikeout for Hamels. And Eric Young is coming up. MLB.com at bat is celebrating 5 years with your #1 mobile app for live baseball. Available for your iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry 10, and Windows Phone 8. At Bat delivers Phillies baseball with live audio, pitch tracking, stats, highlights, and more. Text at bat to 31826 or visit Phillies.com for details. Eric Young is 1 for 2. He doubled and scored in the first. He struck out in the second. Little low, 1 ball, no strikes.
Well, you have all these outfielders there for the New York Mets fighting for a position next year on that team, somewhere in that outfield.
Well, they're a lot like the Phillies are when it comes to the outfield. I mean, the Phillies have some pieces like Dominic Brown in left field that you can say are in place. But, you know, there's some questions about all 3 spots, you would think, going into 2014, just as the Mets have questions. I think the difference is the Phillies have some guys that they can pick and choose from even right now.
Well, a lot better for sure than, the Mets, especially the year that Dominic Brown has had, and then again been been revered. Let's face it, the way he came back fighting, getting 2 or 3 hits a day. Obviously, arm maybe a little bit short, but he was getting on base and scoring runs. He's not getting pitches called, and then when he jams the hitters, he's getting punished for it. That ball actually falling in, making good pitches, getting bad results.
Little looper out towards center field. That's going to drop for a base hit. Rounding third, heading for him is Darnell. The throw by Hernandez, cut off by Ruff. And now they've got Young caught between first and second, but no chance to get him at first base. An RBI single. Very athletic play by Hamels. And it's a 5-0 ball game.
Just shows you, too, what type of athlete that this guy is. Soft base hit to center field. Darren Ruff doing a good job, too, though, cutting that off. That's the kind of ball you want to cut off. Unfortunately, nobody over at first base there. As you see Cole kind of spectating. He's supposed to go home. He's reading the play, however, has the mind and the presence to try and get over there. He barehands the ball and dives to try and get him, to no avail, however.
Well, you're looking at a couple of close pitches that Hamels thought he had on a couple of different hitters, and now the Mets have a run and an RBI single by Eric Young. And now they got to keep an eye on Young because we mentioned it before. It seems like the Mets have something on Hamels.
Yeah, not just the Mets, the guys that know how to steal bases. I know for a fact Davey Lopes will have something there on him. He has something just about on every single pitcher. And you have to if you're going to be a good base stealer.
Young leading all of baseball in stolen bases with 24 since the All-Star break, including the one tonight where he stole third.
Well, he knows that he has a running game, has to score runs. Line drive and a little bit of a knuckleball there.
It sure was. Todd is retired, though, but another run scores for the Mets. They get a run on 2 blue hits. Middle of the fourth, the Mets on top 5-0. Chase Utley due to lead it off. Good banking is good citizenship. Is it a time you experience good banking? And by Anheuser-Busch. A reminder from Budweiser, great times are waiting. Designated driver. Bottom of the fourth inning, the Mets 5, the Phillies nothing. Chase Utley, Carlos Ruiz, and Dominic Brown against a totally different pitcher than the Phillies saw back at the end of August.
Well, maybe his arm's a lot stronger now. He certainly seems to keep that ball down. Still pretty deliberate, however, in terms of winding up and throwing to the plate. Always been a pitcher that's been a little slow. As a matter of fact, a lot of the Japanese pitchers there, because of that little hesitation and just don't go as quick. Here it is.
There is a disruption to the timing, though, for a hitter.
Well,
at least it seems that way.
You know, we're going to have to ask these guys here. I mean, again, it would be a little bit, because when he's showing you his numbers, you should be showing him yours. Good hitting.
Well, he stays on that one. He gets a base hit to right field.
And the other thing is, he's not really throwing as hard as he used to. So therefore, kind of difficult to get inside, even on that little hesitation. He'll get you more on off-speed pitches than he will, and that was an off-speed pitch. I'll be staying back on it, just blasting it there in the right field. But you know, he's he can fool you on that off-speed pitch, especially if it's down.
Yeah, his fastest fastball tonight is 91 miles an hour. That's the hardest he has thrown. Here's Ruiz. He flied to right his last time up. He's 0 for 1. Fastball, little high. Two balls and no strikes to Ruiz.
I think Carlos is kind of guessing with him, you know, a little bit. Don't want to do that as a hitter. You want to stay with your strength. His strength is hitting fastballs, and the curveball that he throws is high enough where you can address and really blast it. Got to keep your balance when you're hitting off of a pitcher like this. Doesn't guarantee you hits, but it will make it easier for you. Put it back, maximize your ability.
Oh, with 2 on and nobody out, Dominic Brown is coming up. But Sarge, he is the subject of our Hyundai defensive play of the game.
Well, you got to have speed when you're able to play the outfield. That one there is he's going for the home run. Don't know if he read it right, but he sure got it in that glove. Look at him keeping his eyes right there on the ball. That's what you want to do there. There's your Hyundai defensive play of the game.
Brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers. So Brown is up here. The Phillies down 5-0. They can use a pop right here. Get back in this ball game.
You know what? And that's how normally. I mean, the teams that are winning or that win ball games, you get those 2-run home runs, 3-run home runs to get you back in the game, and then you peck away a little.
Inside, 1-0. Curveball, he went on that. It's 1 ball and 1 strike. I think he surprised him when he threw that curveball just by the reaction of the swing.
Spin of it, though. Get it up. Thing is, too, don't get greedy here. Looking for a base hit. If you're able to get more, okay. Just want to keep that line moving. Even him, though, breaking ball not as sharp as it was when he was with Boston. I mean, really was snapping that ball off.
Well, they say that's been the key to his success the last couple of starts, is that the curveball has been better.
Well, any of those pitchers, you're able to get your off-speed pitch over. You're able to spot that fastball. Hitter will get himself out the majority of the time. Okay, now that's the pitch there for me. I think he was in between. That pitch there only 89, but if you're not just looking for it all the way, because it's right down the middle. He doesn't miss fastballs down the middle. The back of your head, if you're thinking, oh, maybe he's going to throw an off-speed pitch, that's why I say you stay with your strength. And if he doesn't, it's a ball. Guess what? You got the bases loaded.
3 balls and 2 strikes to Brown. Lays off. There you go.
It's a great at bat.
That's a gutsy pitch to throw 3-2, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, again, what he's trying to do is get him to swing at it. A bad pitch there after coming inside. Dominic picking up the spin of that ball, and it's down. Take a look at it, though. You know, that's a ball when it leaves his hand. That's when it leaves his hand, and that's what you pick up, you know, as a hitter. That's a good at bat, definitely.
So the bases are loaded here in the 4th. And Darin Ruf, who walked his first time up, will be the hitter.
See one thing, though, he didn't come back with that 3-2 fastball in that spot.
Ooh, Ruf got a fastball there, and he fouled it off.
Most pitchers in a sequence, when you're up at bat, will give you a good pitch to hit. You just have to be ready, whether or not it's the first, second, third, etc. You got to be ready for your pitch.
Lead off. The infield is back. And a curveball ripped. That's a fair ball down the left field line. Off the half wall. 2 runs will score. Brown goes to third. Ruff's got to hurry to get to second. He does. The ball gets away. Here comes Dominic Brown. 3 runs cross the plates. That's extremely good hitting there from Darin Ruf. That's what he needs to do when he's hitting in that 5th spot or 6th spot to be able to drive in runs. That was a high breaking ball. Take a look at this as he adjusts on it. You're going to hit that pitch most of the time, even looking fastball, because it's up near your eyes. Take a look at it. He had a vicious cut on this ball to hit it down the line. It's going to ricochet there. Runners are off to the races. This ball gets away. Another run is going to score as Dominic Brown crosses your plate. Boy, good hitting on a breaking ball. You youngsters out there, if you're looking at somebody being able to hit a breaking ball, that's the tape there that you want. He stayed right on it. Phillies also caught a break, Sarge, excuse me, because that ball did not hit the chair down the left field line. It hit the wall instead.
Good point.
If it hit the chair, then it probably would have been a dead ball. Only 2 would have scored, and they would have put Dominic Brown at third, and that was it. Yep. Instead, it's a double, 2 RBIs, and an E7. Here's Ashe. And Cody takes low, 1-0. Ashe struck out his first time up. The 2 RBIs for Ruf is 27th and 28th of the year. He now has 10 doubles. And Ashe pops it up. Shallow left center field. Playable for Lagares. And there's one away.
Yeah, just a little too anxious.
So Ruf is still at second.
Got a good opportunity there to make sure you pull that ball to advance the runner. Those are those little things that you got to do during the course of a season in order to be successful. But those are the things that you'll learn, and Sandberg will definitely be able to teach those type of things. And yes, when you're here in the major league, you still got to teach and you have to develop.
Missed his spot, but he got the call from the home plate umpire.
Yeah, that was borderline fastball inside with movement.
Now the 0-2 pitch. That was it back. Base hit to left. Phillies should get another run. Base hit to center. It'll depend on Ruff's jump. Really the same with Brown in right field, although he's awfully deep.
Well, if he can get himself a good secondary, will give him a better chance.
Back toward the box. Oh, a kick save, and Matsuzaka's got Ruff caught between second and third. And Quintanilla tracks him down. He didn't get him. Everybody's safe. Mayberry goes to second. Good job by Ron Culpa to stay with that play at third base.
Yep. Right there on it, not taking it for granted. Tell you what, nobody's fault on that. I mean, any base runner at second, ball hit up the middle like that, you're not counting on the pitcher to kick it with his foot. Mayberry stays with it. He gets into that rundown right now, and after this throw here, he just keeps going as fast as he can. Didn't tag him at all. Take a look at it again. Just reaching for him. Says no, no, no.
Wow, huge. What a break for the Phils.
Huge.
They'll play the infield back with runners on second and third with Cole Hamels. And a curveball whacked foul. It's 0-1. Oh, this is a great shot. Did he get him? No. Didn't look like he got him. I mean, if he did, he just barely got him. But Ron Culpa was right on him. And David Wright didn't argue. And he had a pretty good year, too, Serge.
Yep. Well, those happen, too. I mean, so quick, runner running, unless you see that pants movement on him. They're not going to call him probably out. Okay, once you get in a rundown, though, however, on this level, shouldn't be able to get out of it. I mean, shouldn't be a whole lot of different throws. You practice that play, I don't know how many times in spring training, and you can have the fastest runner and not get out of it.
A little cheese right there, a little high heat. And it's 1-2.
Just get it down a little bit.
Well, a ground ball to the middle of the infield would make it a 5-4 game.
Surprised they haven't brought that infield in. Well, a little bit more. But the more you bring it in, the easier it is for there to be a hit. So they're back to be able to cut the ball off, even if it's hit on the ground someplace. That's how you make them throw a strike when you know the strike zone. Should be zoning him down.
Ground ball right side. Here comes Ruff. And Satin will flip to Matsuzaka. It's a one-run game. Not only that, the runner goes to third with 2 outs. An RBI for Hamels. So now Matsuzaka bounces one. Mayberry could score.
Very good point, too. Great job. Hamels helping his own cause, getting a little bit closer as he hits that slider coming in, staying right on it. End up getting himself an RBI, hustling there to first base. There's that hook up 3-1.
Here's Cesar Hernandez. He has not timed Matsuzaka tonight. 1-0.
Well, you're on third base, got to be ready for everything, like you were saying, whether or not it might be a wild pitch or an air. Have that momentum going toward home. Good pitch. You know, a lot of times too, especially those leadoff hitters, you see that infield back. I've seen them take that ball right there to first base. They'll beat it out. Usually that runner heads up. He should be able to score no matter what. That ball with 2 outs, wherever it's hit, you got to be moving home.
One ball, 1 strike to Hernandez. th pitch of the inning that you just saw from Matsuzaka. So he's at 72.
Well, you know, when he's out there on the mound, don't make any plans to do anything else but to go to the game.
Might be able to go to a 24-hour convenience store afterward. That's about it.
That is about it.
And he pulls that one to second. Picked on one hop by Murphy. It kind of fooled him. He almost got caught because Hernandez runs well. Side is retired, though, and 4 runs score. The big blow, it's Darin Rupp, who kind of opened up this inning by drilling a double down the left field line. Not only did he get 2 RBIs, but the Mets started throwing the ball around, and 3 runs wound up scoring onto a 4-run inning. Big inning for the Phils. In the bottom of the 4th, they scored 4 runs. 2 were earned, 2 were unearned. So now the Phils are back within reach, and the first pitch to David Wright is taken for a strike. It's 0-1. Wright tonight is 1 for 2. He homered his first time up. And it's 0-2. Time to take a look at our Mazda leaders, and with his home run tonight, David Wright moves into sole possession of 2nd place in Mets history with 221 home runs. he's going to own just about every offensive category in Mets history.
Yep, no doubt about that. One of the better guys really in the league. We talked about earlier there at the cage how he was happy to be back. Said it's more difficult being on the DL because you have to work so hard. He said it's fun when you're able to just come out and play the games.
Swing and a miss. He got him with a curveball. They didn't bother to run, and that is strikeout number 1,500 for Cole Hamels. It's his 5th of the night. Pretty nice little milestone that Cole has just reached. He's trying to get 100 wins and 1,500 strikeouts all on the same night.
Well, maybe he can get David to sign one of those balls. I mean, since he has a lot of success against the fighting fields, be a nice ball to put up there. 1,500 strikeouts. David Wright on your manual.
There's Satin. He's 0 for 2. Change up. It's 0-1. Here's the 0-1 pitch to Satin. Low. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Pretty nice milestone to have 1,500 strikeouts.
Inside 2-1. We'll think about 32 active pitchers with 100 wins or more, and 23 active pitchers with 1,500 strikeouts or more. And that's just, I would think it's safe to say he's just scratching the surface of what his numbers are going to be before it's all said and done.
Oh boy, yeah, he's looking at him to have a lot more strikeouts. We talk about too with the defense, it's a little bit better than if you're able to protect yourself that way because you're not throwing as many pitches. Kind of take that defense for granted, especially in the outfield, and guys running down balls, catching them.
Swing and a miss. He got him. He's on his way to his next 1,500. 6 strikeouts for Hamels. Yeah, there are 2 outs here in the 5th. Phillies strikeout career leaders. It is 53 to eclipse Kurt Schilling and the great Chris Short with 1,585.
Steve Carlton, of course, leading the way.
Well, and if Hamels spends the rest of his career with the Phillies, there's no reason to think that he won't after the contract he signed last time. You know, he could pass Lefty too.
Well, I got to tell you, boy, you get in those numbers, you're trying to get that key to the Hall of Fame. You talk about striking out 3,000 batters, and yeah, I know he has it in him. But it's interesting too, and Steve was actually pitching. I mean, you expected to win the ball game, period. Plain and simple. Didn't really have a hitters meeting, and when we did, he would actually walk in there and say, "Hey, listen, play everybody straight up. If they hit it in the gaps, it's my fault. Game on."
Cutter inside, 2-1 to Brown.
Just a tremendous athlete, and boy, any big game, you want him on the mound for you. I can tell you that.
Was he a fun teammate to have? Just because, I mean, he was kind of quirky and everything, but very competitive.
Yeah, he's always serious. You know, he didn't play around, didn't joke around a lot. I mean, this is, you know, he might have done that just doing his workouts, but other than that, he was serious business. almost to a point at times it was just scary.
Swing and a miss. He struck out the side. 5, 6, and 7 strikeouts. 1,500, 1,501, and 1,502 for Cole Hamels. He found a little bit of a groove here in the top of the 5th. He got a curveball from David Wright, and then a changeup to get Satin, and then finally another breaking ball to get the last batter. Night. All your favorite scenes, all your favorite episodes, all on America's #1 comedy, Modern Family. Premieres Monday at 7:30 and 10:30 on PHL 17. Sarge, I don't know if you've watched Modern Family before. It is a very funny show. In fact, I want that to be part of your homework assignment for the off season, is to catch up on all of the seasons of Modern Family.
Okay, I'll get that put right on the iPad.
Yeah,
on
we can get it.
App Store.
That's right.
Put that right on.
Some great characters that are part of that show. Jimmy Rollins leads it off. He's 0 for 2. And the first pitch is over for a strike. It's 0-1. Rollins is grounded out. He is grounded out to second and to third so far. A liner to right field. Going back up, it is Brown, and it sinks right on into his glove. Hit that ball well.
Well, see where the breaking ball was, up in the zone. I've said that you can look fastball off of him, and if the breaking ball is up, it's just going to float in. That's why I say you're able to really react and hit that ball, hit it on the nose. So J-Ro did on that particular pitch, took a fastball away. Doc tells him, hey, hang with him.
There's Chase Utley. All right, when you played, there weren't, the influx of Japanese ball players, pitchers that had come into the league. But you went to Japan and played.
Yep.
What do you remember about facing, let's say, a Japanese pitcher compared to an American pitcher?
Well, I just remember, though, that just about every one of them were very deliberate, and especially when they were in their, if it was a man on base. I mean, it was just always a hesitation on a move, the same way, again, that you see most of them that are here in this country now. That hesitation right there, they all do that in Japan.
All right, now Yu Darvish, who pitches for the Rangers, is kind of different than what we're seeing from Matsuzaka. Now, Matsuzaka used to throw hard. He's a little stockier compared to Darvish, who's tall and lean.
Yep.
But is that the kind of pitchers that you remember facing, or were they more junk ballers?
Oh, no, they were more junk ballers. Not a whole lot of fastballs that they were actually throwing at us. No, we had a good team, too, back then. With Foster there on the team. Also Parker.
Utley hits it skyward down the left field line. Young on the run. He gets to a spot. And there are 2 outs. Now, this was a traveling all-star team that you took over to Japan.
Not, I didn't take them over.
Well,
I mean,
we were.
Yeah. That was a pleasure playing with them. Again, George Foster, Dave Parker playing with those guys. I led off too, by the way.
Of course you did. Time now for our cold hard fact, brought to you by Prosper Coors Light. Daisuke pitched for the Seibu Lions of the Nippon Professional Baseball League for 8 years. He led the Pacific League in strikeouts 4 times, wins 3 times, and ERA twice.
Well, no doubt, was a star. Still a star there in that country.
Carlos Ruiz 0 for 1 with a walk and a run scored. It's 1 ball and no strikes. Was there anything that surprised you about playing in Japan?
Well, I tell you, it was quite an honor, first of all, to be able to go there and to be picked on their team. But I think those bullet trains, I mean, when they say they're leaving at 7:32, be on it. Other than that, I mean, they are on time with just about all of their training.
That stood out more than the baseball, huh?
Yeah. Got a chance and got introduced back then to sushi that I really loved to this day. Well, everybody doesn't like sushi. I mean, that's kind of an acquired type of taste there, Tom.
I'm with you on that. Ruiz pops it up. Satin in foul territory near the Phillies dugout, and the side is retired. So after allowing 4 in the 4th, MATSUZAKA retires the Phillies in order here in the 5th. Put on some kind of show Monday night. Lee could be amazing anytime he takes the mound, and he took it to the next level against the Miami Marlins. He pitched 8 dominating innings and struck out 14, his best since 2011. And of course, he allowed no walks. All this while eclipsing the 200 strikeout and inning plateau this season. That was just the beginning. He then ended a personal best 3 hits, 4 RBIs, and his first career triple. It was a very special night for Cliff, and it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Well, it was a great night for Cliff, Sarge. In fact, he felt like he had moved closer to Cole Hamels in the offensive categories. But Cliff will probably acknowledge that Cole did get some points tonight with his RBI and the ground outs.
Right. I think they get them on sacrifice bunts, ground outs, RBIs, and obviously hits.
Here's Lagares, who's 0 for 2 tonight with a strikeout. Swing and a miss. Boy, that breaking pitch, he's gone to an awful lot. Actually, that may have been a changeup.
Yeah,
it just was a lot slower changeup.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened early on, too. I know there's been a lot of talk about it where changeup early on during the year. Maybe he was trying to throw it a little bit too hard, but that had good movement on it. Another good movement as he paints the outside part of the plate. Maybe up something high or maybe just something in the dirt. Have him sit down.
Toyota Major League Scoreboard, the Rays lead the Orioles 3-1. That game's in the bottom of the 5th inning. Jose Molina 2 for 2 with a double and a run. Inside. Sarge, in case you weren't aware, the AL wildcard standings are very tight.
Oof.
Orioles have found their way back within 2. Royals are within 3, but the Indians just a half game back.
Well, you're playing in games like that that mean something. That's when you're able to see exactly what kind of players you have, whether or not they're able to hit under pressure or not.
Now the 3-2 pitch to Lagares. Breaking ball, swung out and missed. That's 4 straight strikeouts. Sorry, I may be misreading this, but that ball, it's in the 80s, so it's got to be a changeup. But look at the break on it.
Yeah, actually, it kind of just moves away, if you will. I think has a lot to do with the way, obviously, he's gripping it and then actually throws it. But it seems to be going away from that right-handed hitter, which makes it so difficult to hit, especially when he pitches inside to keep those right-handed hitters honest.
Here's Darnell. He blooped a single to center his first time, or his last time up. He's 1 for 2. Off the end of the bat, Mayberry started back. Now he's going to come trotting in. What causes an outfielder to do that? You think the swing?
Bad read on the ball, not anticipating the ball coming to you. You know, you can tell almost like we were taught on the sound. That didn't sound like it was hit hard enough to where it was going to be taken off in the gap. All those type of things will help you as an outfielder. You got to make sure, though, that you are anticipating the ball coming to you every hitter.
And Omar Quintanilla, he's 0 for 2. He's grounded out twice.
Boy, just making Cole throw that ball and get part of the plate. That was a pretty good pitch. Could have easily been called. You can see here that he gets the ball, throws. Daisuke gets the ball and hesitate. Therefore, that's what makes those games a little longer.
The ball kind of handcuffed Chase Utley. With 2 outs, the Mets get a base runner, and Matsuzaka is indeed going to bat here in the 6th inning. He scored that a single. And now Matsuzaka will bat.
Didn't know how they were going to actually score that. Ended up getting them a base hit on that. I don't know. Didn't think it was hit that hard.
I don't think he ever got a glove on it, but I'm with you. As a scorer, I wouldn't know how to score it. Like I would guess, I would probably have scored it a hit if it were me, but I know you could probably go the other way if you wanted to, just because Chase will make that play.
You know, a lot of times when we played, that scorer would actually go and ask that player, hey, what do you think? This is what I saw, this or that, and it would either change it one way or the other, giving a hit or taking one away. That fielder said, hey, I should have caught that ball, then more than likely it was going to be taken away.
Well, this one Chase gobbles up with relative ease, and he throws over to first. No runs. 1 hit and 1 man left. It's a 1-run game as we go to the middle of the 6th. Dominic Brown will lead it off for the Phils. your local dealer today. By W.B. Mason. You can't go wrong when you buy right. And by Chevrolet. Visit your local dealer at ChevyDealer.com. Oh, the Mets have bullpen action. Germain is already probably pretty lathered up. He was throwing before Matsuzaka hit. So Matsuzaka will start the 6th with a 1-run lead. Time now for our Coors Light Freeze Cam. DAISUKE wearing high top, Sarge.
Wow.
There's that hesitation we talked about. A little bit of a kick. And that's traditional. And that, well.
What is Wills doing back there?
I think he's on the phone. No, he's not. He's thinking. He's pondering.
Pondering. Okay. Wow. There's your Coors Light Freeze Cam then.
Sure is.
All right.
Dominic Brown will lead it off. He's been on base twice tonight. He has singled. He's also walked and scored. Outside, 1 ball and no strikes.
Dominic's been seeing him pretty good. He laid off of a 3-2 pitch, which is as big as any at bat, maybe besides Darren Ruff. See if he can put a good swing on him. Don't think he's going to be able to reach 100 RBIs, but he could reach those 30 home runs there.
Oh, man. I don't like to say too much about an umpire, but
I had a chance too to talk with Chuck Merriweather, that is here judging a lot of the umpires and writing some things down. And I said, hey, you get a chance to evaluate and check them out for yourself. See what you think.
It's a hard job. I realize that, but there's been a couple pitches tonight that.
Well, all we as hitters want you to call them both ways and don't change the strike zone. So in other words, if you're not giving that pitch to Cole Hamels, then you can't give it to the other one. No, borderline. And then I've always said too that it is up to the hitter to adjust to the umpire's zone. No, you don't want, now if that pitch is down there again, you got to swing at it. Period.
Here's the 3-2 pitch coming to Dominic Brown. Off the end of the bat.
Well, he's actually making Dominic be aggressive on anything that would be low. And then that's when he's able to get that slider in the dirt. A lot of times hitters will check swing on it or swing over it.
Got him with a curveball. 5 strikeouts.
Yeah, kind of got away with that. Thought he had still a good at bat on it. He took him to 3-2. Just a little bit too hard of a swing. I should be down there right where that ball is, and his was up just a little bit. Take a look what Darren did as he drives in 2 runs there on this double. That ball was smoked. High breaking ball. He jumped right on it. That's what you want to be able to see Darren hit with men on base. Regardless if it's 1 out, 2 out. Just to have a good at bat. That's what Ryan Sandberg's looking for. Realizing you can't always do the job, but you can 90% of the time or more have good at bats.
Now the 1-2 pitch coming to Darren Ruff. Grounder foul. He'll stay alive.
I didn't think he was going to come back inside, especially with the open stance there that Darren Ruff has. And not only that, he hit a breaking ball that was inside and up that he just rifled down that third baseline.
on the outside corner, and there are 2 outs. 6 strikeouts for Matsuzaka.
I know exactly what kind of zone. Let's see exactly where the pitch is. After calling no strikes on a batter, I just cannot give a pitcher a pitch on the outside. That's not even outside on the plate. The strength right now, again, he looks for his fastball. Okay, now the location. He's making the guy swing down, so they shouldn't have to swing down and up.
Well, that's a beautiful swing right there by Ashe. That one's going to go to the corner. This could be 3 the way he runs. It's picked up by Brown with the bare hand. Going to third is Ashe. The throw is in time. Took a really big turn around second. And that was a great exchange from Brown to Quintanilla to get Ashe trying to stretch it into a triple. No runs, 1 hit, and nobody left. Well, this is the way you do it. The relay throw was there. We'll go to the 7th in a 1-run game.
Well, time for your local Honda dealers game summit. It's a strange game tonight. 5-0 Mets. Phillies with a 4 spot. Cole Hamels giving up a couple of those broken bat dunkers for the runs 4 and 5. Phillies had a bizarre 4th inning to get their 4 runs. So both the starters are still around. Hamels been getting stronger as the game has gone along, especially with his fastball location and then using his changeup.
8 strikeouts so far for Hamels as we begin the 7th. He's at 105 pitches. There is bullpen action behind him. And it's 0-2. Eric Young is 2 for 3. He's got an RBI, and he also has scored a run. See the line score?
And with his pitch count where it is right now in the 7th inning, they really need to get the bullpen ready.
Well, DeFreitas is warming.
At the point right now, he has 1 more start left in the year, but you still don't want to get silly with it.
Ball to second.
Oh, what a great shot that is. And good call. David Wright gets him right there in the lower shin before the foot hits the bag. Ryan Copa's had all kinds of stuff down there.
I don't know if David even tagged him, though. Did you?
Well, I thought his uniform moved.
Oh, you think so?
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought I saw his uniform pant move. So
the throw definitely beat him.
Oh, yeah. When it beats him like that and you get the glove down there like that, normally you get the call. Especially when the guy's standing behind you.
Well, Daniel Murphy has another base hit. He's 3 for 4.
Copa had a tough one that he got right on that line drive hit down the line that the rough end, hit right on the chalk line.
These lucky fans are tonight's Citizens 7. They will receive a prize pack courtesy of Citizens Bank. Citizens Bank with most 7-day branches in the Philadelphia area. To find a branch near you, visit citizensbank.com.
So I thought they might come get him right now with Wright up there, because Wright and Hamels are really interesting to watch go at each other, the way they get into a guessing game. And I think he struck him out a curveball last time, but she doesn't throw him that many of those.
Off the hands. Boy, there's been a lot of these hits tonight. Murphy's going to go to third. And he'll be first and third with one out.
That's what we talked about earlier. And when they got their fourth and fifth run, dunker. But it's all part of the game. You give the Mets credit too, because they're swinging the bats and making contact. You make contact, something can happen. Doobie. Brian Sandberg talking it over down there a little bit right now. Mets have a ton of extra players on the bench, so you don't even know where to start on what they would do.
The first two innings, they were all up on the railing or right behind the guys on the railing. I mean, it looked like it was a college baseball team with a number of guys.
And a lot of guys in the bullpen too, Tom. There's a lot of blue jackets out there.
Breaking ball inside, 1-0.
Obviously trying to get a double play here and get out of this inning, or a strikeout. Look at all those blue jackets. Keep it right where it is. Somebody's getting back within one, and then the game kind of stalled again.
Ground ball towards shortstop. It's going to be tough. Rollins to second for one. Here's Utley to first. Not in time. Run scores, and it's a 6-4 ball game.
He broke his bat. They did everything they could. Phillies did everything they could there. Broke his bat, and it just wasn't hit hard enough, and he's safe at first. Good turn to that double play by Chase Utley, though. That thing barely touches his glove. There's a broken bat going to Jimmy's right, who dribbled. Look at that, right in, out of the glove. Strong throw to first. He's safe. Good call. Murphy with his good base running goes first to third to get in a position to score on that.
Chase is reaching for the back of his leg, and now Rollins is asking if he's okay, and he said he's all right. Oh boy. If he did something on the pivot, if he did something as he was running to second base.
Didn't say. Just watching his hands, how quick his hands were on that double play. Here's a look at it. Now just watch it. We'll look down below this time and see if you see anything. Well, the runner didn't get to him. His toe stuck in the ground a little bit.
Pulled his leg up.
Yeah, well, his toe stuck in the ground a little bit as he did so. Hopefully he didn't strain something.
Chopper to short. Rollins is going to take it to the bag. Now the side is retired. It looks like he's running okay. Time to stretch here at Citizens Bank Park. The Mets lead the Phillies 6-4. who holds the Mets single-season rookie record for hits with 146. He played for both the Mets and the Phillies.
Bring on the hints.
Played for the Phillies last year.
Last year?
Yeah. He no longer plays for the Phillies this year.
I got the feeling you were going to tell me he was here. I don't know.
He's not here. I have not seen him at the ballpark.
I don't know.
Matt Dendecker comes in to play right field for the Mets.
That doesn't count, right? The buzzer. Jeff Hallerman, our producer,
counts.
he just gave me the hint. It's something about an even tie, so it's Ty Wigginton.
Ty Wigginton is correct.
Right.
Back in 2003.
That doesn't count.
John Mayberry lead it off against Scott Atchison.
But thank you.
Atchison will bat in the 5th spot. Dendecker will bat in the 9 hole. And Kevin Franzen's out on deck to pinch hit for the Phils. 1 ball, 1 strike. There's Kevin staring at you. The outside corner, and Mayberry's down looking. 1 out here in the 7th. Well, the 2014 schedule is available online. Now, what it includes is the home opener on Monday, April 7th at 3:05 against the Brewers. Plus, there are interleague games against the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and the Angels. And on Saturdays, a number of the games will be at 3:05. Full and partial ticket plan information is now available. Call 215-463-5000. for more information. So Franzen will pinch hit. Franzen hitting .231 with 5 home runs. With a dribbler back to the box. And 2 outs. Chase is back in the dugout. And grabbing his bat, getting ready for his AB, hoping that he'll get a chance to hit here in the 7th. Cesar Hernandez is 0 for 3. Cesar's had a tough at-bat, or tough night, I should say, at the plate with his at-bats.
Yeah, hit it hard as last time. First 2 times up, DAISUKE kind of carved him up with a lot of off-speed stuff and high fastballs. Bragging on Hernandez a little bit tonight to Keith Hernandez before the game. He'll be wanting to pull my scouting card after
He's doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, good. We're both going to get in trouble tomorrow with him.
I think the play in center, though, was part of what we were talking about with those guys. The one he made earlier. Out toward left field. Boy, Eric Young was playing way over toward the line. He's so quick that he's able to track that one down. It was slicing back toward him. And the side is retired in order. 7 in the books here at Citizens Bank Park. Game 1 of this 3-game series. We'll be back after this. Hi, Toyota. Toyota's nationwide clearance event is going on now. Toyota, let's go places. And buy the Pennsylvania Lottery. Benefits older Pennsylvanians every day. There's Cole Hamels having a chat with Roy Halladay. Hamels went 7 today, allowed 10 hits and 6 runs. There were parts of tonight's game where he was just flat out dominant. Picked up his 1,500th career strikeout.
A strange night for him, really. As you look at Justin's numbers right there, he's been pretty good lately. He come into so many games this year with the bases loaded, a couple men on, so one of those relaxing type of starts to an inning for him. Yeah, Hamels had that strange first inning, and then, as you said, some dominant innings, and then a lot of quails out in the outfield.
Absolutely.
That's the way it goes.
Here's Lagares, who leads it off against DeFreitas. He shows bunt and bunts it up the third base line, foul.
There's no surprise that he tries to bunt his way on.
Toward left center. Hernandez got a good jump and away. Travis Darneau is coming up. Time to talk to Murph with the Major League Notebook. Murph.
All right, T-Mac, thank you very much. Brought to you by Gwynedd Mercy University. Manny Pettit is calling it a career again. The 41-year-old lefty for the Yanks was a member of all 5 World Series teams since 1995 for them. He retired after the 2010 season, you'll remember. Came back for the 2012 season, but he's hanging it up again. And Pettit retires as the baseball's all-time winningest pitcher in postseason history. And a strange injury in the Blue Jays-Red Sox game, actually before the Blue Jays-Red Sox game even began. Colby Rasmus of the Blue Jays out there having a catch in the outfield, was hit by a baseball from his own player, Anthony Gose, a former forehand of the Phils. Just wasn't paying attention, got hit in the eye, had to be removed from the game. No word yet officially from the Blue Jays, but we are hearing that perhaps his left eye has been injured, so we'll keep you updated on that. But strange happenings up there in Toronto, guys.
Well, it is strange. You talk about Andy Pettit retiring. His teammate Mariano Rivera, who is retiring also at the end of this year, tore his ACL during batting practice, shagging fly balls a couple of years ago. Well, those are 2 big pieces the Yankees will not have in the next couple of years.
Yeah, they're 2 of the big pieces that won all those championships for them too. When you look back when the Yankees were great, Pettit and Rivera. Murph just talking about postseason. Who's ever been better in postseason than Rivera? Isn't he under a 1? His postseason ERA, I think it is.
It could be. I don't know.
Something like
off the top of my
that.
head.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
It was pretty impressive. 13 division titles for the core of that team. Derek Jeter will be returning to the New York Yankees, or at least we assume he will be. So he's the last piece of those championship teams after Rivera is gone as well. So.
Yeah, they really had a heck of a core, Murphy. You're talking, and they were all farm system guys too.
Yeah, one's a definite Hall of Famer. The other one's going to be debated.
Yeah,
Andy Pettit, whether the postseason numbers, aided with 250-plus wins during the regular season, will help him get into the Hall of Fame.
And then Jeter some days a no-brainer.
Yeah, Rivera and Jeter no-brainers. Pettit, it depends on how they look at this era. It depends on how they look at his HGH use and whether they think that's enough wins. I mean, traditionally, it's not enough wins to get in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Pettit's a lot like Curt Schilling in that regard.
Yep.
So good in the postseason, and really that's what it's all about when it's all said and done. But maybe not quite have the numbers that traditional Hall of Fame pitchers would have.
Jack Morris too.
Yeah,
Murph.
Jack Morris, another good.
To me, there are certain pitchers that need to get in before, let's say, a Schilling or an Andy Pettit or somebody like that. And Jack Morris to me is one of those guys. I mean, just because of my eyes told me how dominant he was watching.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
There's ball 4, and Darnell walks with 1 out. So DeFreitas allows the 1-out walk. Omar Quintanilla is due up, and let's see how Ryan Sandberg's going to play this. He's got Den Decker in the on-deck circle.
Well, he has a left-hander ready in the bullpen. Deciding to pitch to Quintanilla here with De Freitas.
Fastball outside, 1 ball, no strikes.
Tough to anticipate what he may do off the bench. Talking about Terry Collins with all these players they have.
What if he wants to get everybody in?
Well, no, who would use the pinch hitter of this group? Right hand. I guess Justin Turner.
I would think
would
so.
be the most likely.
Yeah.
Due to left-handed. A lot of times you look down the card at this point in the game, and you can almost figure the matchups and where the managers are thinking 2-3 innings ahead or hitters ahead. But when you have all these players, it's hard to figure it out. It's an analyst nightmare. It's like spring training games. We try to analyze those. Yeah, right. Cool what they had the Giants do, huh? Play the Mets and the Yankees.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Come east, play them both.
Apparently there were a lot of Giants fans at Citi Field.
Sure there are.
There'll be a lot at Yankee Stadium too.
Yeah. People never let them go there. They run here. It's a pretty good running situation now for New York. Then Decker, another left-handed hitter waiting on deck. When you run here, you get a good chance to get a first and third if you can get it through the infield or stay out of a double play.
Runner does go. They'll stay out of the double play. And Utley will throw out Quintanilla. So Darno goes up to second. And there are 2 outs, and Den Decker will bat. Ryan Sandberg is going to stay with Justin De Freitas here. A reminder that ball applications are being accepted until October 15th. Phillies are seeking folks to represent them in the community. You have to have public relations skills, softball experience, and knowledge of the game of baseball, strong interpersonal skills, and an outgoing personality, flexible schedule. You must be 18 years of age. If you're interested, see the Phillies.com/community section for all the details. All right, Sandberg is out to get Justin De Freitas, so Den Decker, a left-hander, is going to face Cesar Jimenez, another left-hander. So Jimenez is going to come in to try to get Den Decker out. At least it seems like it's going to be Den Decker. He's going over to his hitting coach just to go over the scouting report. This is an AT&T call to the bullpen here at Citizens Bank Park. We'll be back after this. you're going to adjust your lineup card. I guess you're going to shake your head a little bit at what the Mets did early on when they scored the 3 runs in the first.
It's nice to see somebody still keeping score.
Yeah, nice handwriting, too. Can read it.
Phillies knew there, Ryan Sandberg knew there that he can go bring a left-hander in. They're going to leave this pitcher. There's Jimenez coming in, and there are the numbers on him. They're going to leave Dendecker in the game because he's a very good defensive player, and they already have a 2-run lead. So it's not like they're looking for more offense here. They would like a 2-out run, but they want him in the game to save runs.
Dendecker hitting just .250 on the year with a home run and 6 RBIs.
He's a center fielder, and they have him playing in right field for coming in a late switch.
On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, the Yankees lead the Giants 5-1. Alex Rodriguez has become the all-time leader in grand slams with his 24th. The Yankees are in 4th place in the East, 12.5 games behind the Red Sox. And 3.5 games off the beaten path in the wild card. Ball's hit hard, but right at Chase Utley. Dendecker's retired. So are the Mets here in the top of the 8th inning. So the Mets lead 1. I think the Phillies can get some offense going here in the bottom of the 8th inning. They'll have Rollins, Utley, and Ruiz against the Mets bullpen. Cloyd on the mound for the Phils. 7:05 first pitch. It's German Heritage Night here at Citizens Bank Park. Sunday is a 1:35 first pitch. It's Fan Appreciation Day. All fans coming to Citizens Bank Park will receive the schedule magnet, compliments of Independence Blue Cross. Plenty of prizes and surprises for those of you coming out. Love to see you at the ballpark. That's lead at 6-4. You can go to Phillies.com to find out more information about the last 2 games here at Citizens Bank Park. You just saw Lucas Duda. He's in the game to play first base for New York. And Vic Black in his 14th ball game for the Mets. 2-0 with an ERA of 3.65. Phillies have not seen Vic Black in a Mets uniform. In fact, I don't think they've ever seen him.
No. Acquired from the Pirates on August 27th, so that's why they've never seen him in a Mets uniform.
Part of the Marlon Byrd deal?
Must be.
Marlon Byrd and John Buck deal?
He is on the sheet 93 to 98, 2-pitch pitcher, fastball, curveball. So that's a pretty big separation probably.
For years, StubHub has been the place to find great Phillies tickets. And this season, you can get more with your tickets thanks to StubHub Fan Rewards. So get to StubHub and grab your seats today. Jimmy Rollins is ready to lead it off. He's 0 for 3. Hit the ball hard his last time up, and he lined out to right. Duda will bat 4th. Black will bat 5th. Inside corner 0-1.
Curveball. 81. His fastball is going to be in the mid 90s. That's what we meant by a tremendous separation of velocity and also the depth of the pitches. That's a great mix. Well, you have a big time fastball and you throw a curveball off it.
Particularly if you're a relief pitcher.
Really, that's all you need. Because the curveball will help him get the left-handed hitters out. A lot of times you see a guy throw hard, they'll try and teach him a changeup, try to get him to get the left-handed hitters out. He can probably get away with fastball, curveball. He's just going to pitch an inning or situation. Get that curveball in the back of your mind. Then he throws fastball at 96. He'll be late.
In the center field. It'll be in for a base hit for Jimmy Rollins.
Good job. Jimmy hit the second curveball he saw and just did a really good job of waiting on it and serving it into center field. There it is. Takes that out of his glove, pops it back, and then throws the pitch. And there was the curveball. Nice piece of hitting.
Chase Utley, he's 1 for 3 tonight.
Excuse me, Tom. These veteran guys hate hitting off somebody they haven't seen before. You can look at film and video and scouting reports and all that, but until you've seen a guy, it's tough. No idea about his velocity and movement, those kind of things, and that's the number one thing they want to know is what's his fastball do.
Chris Cashman will let you know what his fastball is doing here at the ballpark. He's got the gun.
Does a great job.
It is amazing how he is on, I mean, seemingly on every pitch.
Outstanding job. Night after night.
Chris works in the Phillies baseball operations department here.
You can tell he played somewhere with the way he picks up spin back there.
St. Joseph's.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but you can tell he played because you had to play to be able to pick up the spin the way that he does.
I always think it's funny when you look at Chris behind the plate and there's always somebody sitting next to him. It's not like he brought somebody to the game. Right. It's just somebody has the ticket next to him.
Right.
In the dirt.
Well, he is in the Diamond Club. That seat he has down there is just not a regular seat. Row 2 in the Diamond Club. Right behind home plate. That's a pretty good spot.
So Chris just sits, he waits. Calm, cool, collected.
It's a little Cassius in that spot.
Does have a good spot.
Oh, it's great. Don't have to worry about foul balls hitting you.
There he goes. He's ready. Fortunately, the gun works. And he doesn't have to do anything on that one.
No, he can just rest his arm.
Chris went to Archbishop Carroll High School and St. Joseph's University.
It means totally local.
Runner goes. Pitch is taken for a call. Strike 3.
That's a heck of a curveball if that got the plate.
That's not get the plate.
It's not even I don't say much. That's ridiculous. Look where his glove is.
Look at the lady. Look
Catches.
at the lady behind home plate in the first row. She's put.
Just if you see that again, just look where his glove is when he catches it. And he's firing out the throw anyway. Maybe he blocked it because he was firing out the throw.
He's had a rough night behind the plate. There were some pitches that Cole Hamels threw, and even DAISUKE. It's not just one way.
He's got kind of a bemused look. I think what he really wants to do is say, "Are you me?"
So in the bottom of the 8th inning, there's one out. Runner at second base. Carlos Ruiz is at the plate. Carlos takes a curveball. That one drops in for a strike. Carlos is 0 for 2. He walked and scored a run back in the 4th.
And we always try to point out where he catches it doesn't always mean that that's a strike, ball or strike. It's where it crosses the front of home plate that determines ball or strike. That wasn't a strike.
There's a fastball in there for strike 2. It's 1-2. Ground ball up the third base line. Right charges. Flips on the run. Dug out by Duda. And with 2 outs, it'll bring Dominic Brown to the plate.
Pitch and change. Going to go get that left-hander that's out there.
It was Pedro Feliciano earlier. I don't know if it still is. Tim Burdack was up 2. Troy Hawkins, he's been throwing. And coming into the ball game is Pedro Feliciano for the Mets. best analysis in town and break down all of tonight's action. That's next in the Phillies postgame show, live from Sugar House Casino. Home half of the 8th inning, 2 outs. Dominic Brown will face veteran left-hander Pedro Feliciano. Feliciano, 20 games with the Mets this year, coming back from arm problems the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, he doesn't throw very hard anymore. He looks like he throws a lot of slurves. Tries to get the left-handed hitters to just bail out and make a weak out.
See Dominic's numbers against lefties. And that one's over for a strike.
84. He used to have pretty good fastball along with that breaking ball.
Used to pitch against the Phillies every time the Mets and the Phils faced off.
He sure did. Wow. Doing the right thing too. It's staying away from him. Trying to make him beat him the opposite field if he gets a home run. Another fastball. Has to protect now away. Just has to look out there, even when he throws breaking ball, because this guy's expanded the plate, the home plate umpire, that thing a little off the plate right now is going to be a strike. I think.
Popped him up. David Wright over at third. We'll wait for it. And the Phillies are retired here in the 8th inning. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left. Feliciano faces 1. Throws a lot of sliders to get the out. Jake Diekman will come into the ball game. He's 1-4 with a 2.80 earned run average. Nine strikeouts at 35 1/3. So Diekman will come on here at the top of the 9th inning to face Eric Young. Eric Young gets 2 for 4 with an RBI to run scored. Fastball swung on and missed. 0-1. And it's 0-2. Eric Young began the game by doubling off the glove of John Mayberry, made a diving attempt on a ball, and then came around to score after stealing third. He came around to score on a single by Daniel Murphy, and then a 2-run home run by David Wright. Made it 3-0 right out of the chute. The Mets then led it 5-0 going to the bottom of the fourth. Darren Ruff, though, brought the Phils closer by clearing the bases with a double. He was credited with 2 RBIs. The third run scored on an error. Then he eventually came around to score the 4th run. That's it so far.
Yeah, Phillies have only scored in 1 inning tonight.
2 balls and 2 strikes, Derek Young. And a liner towards second, caught by Chase Utley. So 1 out. Every time the Phillies retire the opposition 1-2-3, Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports, giving you all your favorite sports all year long. Phillies retired the Mets in order in the 2nd and the 5th. Cole Hamels with the first 7, struck out 8, but allowed 6 runs. This guy has been a tough customer tonight.
He's been a tough customer against the Phillies. It seems like his whole career he has a lot of 2-hit games. He'll catch him once in a while when he's not hot or not swinging real well, and you always say, well, Murphy was 1 for 28 and the Phillies hit him. Well, here come the 2-hit games again. Just happens. Some guys just, or for whatever reason, have success against certain teams, and he hits the Phillies.
Toward the right side, Utley to his left. Nice play from shallow right field. 2 outs.
That's right. Oh, it's nice when you're not double play depth on balls like that. You can play deep, and then you have a real good angle to the ball, as like the veteran LaTroy Hawkins, and then try and close out. See how deep he is. So as a result, you have a real good angle to a play like that. Get to it. Nice play by Chase Utley.
David Wright tops one to third. Cody Ashe is up with it. And a 1-2-3 inning for Jake Diekman. That sets up the bottom of the 9th inning. The Phillies will have one more opportunity to try to get a couple of runs. They're down by 2 as we head to the bottom of the 9th. The Mets and the Phils, game 1. Darren Ruff, Cody Ashe, John Mayberry due up, and they will face the veteran LaTroy Hawkins, who will take over. Hawkins 3-2, an ERA of 3.11. Bobby Parnell went down with an injury, so Hawkins is closing. He has 10 saves and 13 opportunities. He's the kind of guy that's done just about everything out of the bullpen during the course of his career. They also have Frank Francisco, who is warming in the pen. And I believe the lefty is Tim Burdack, who's wandering around out there. Let's see what the Phillies could do here at the bottom of the 9th inning.
Well, they're one base runner away from the tying run. Mets play a lot of extra inning games, too. They seem to be fond of them.
And long ones.
Long ones. Well, we don't need that.
Ryan Sandberg and Mick Billmeyer going over the lineup card. Phillies have some bats off the bench that they can utilize. Ruff, though, tonight is 1 for 2 with a 2-run double and a run scored that he takes inside. Need to get a base runner to bring the tying run to the plate. Is drilled to center field. Lagares on the run. Boy, he got a good jump. He reaches up at the last moment and reels it in.
He's a big time center fielder, that guy, and that's what they love about him. But all of a sudden he can't hit it all. And then he can run the ball down. And that's just a tremendous play.
Darren Ruff hit that one right on the nose.
Well, you see there are no doubles, but still, that's a tremendous jump. And you know, he can't look away on that one. He has to watch the ball the whole time. It's not like he can run to a spot on a ball like that. Take one peek and run and keep watching it, and then he reaches up, makes a tremendous play, and then uses the wall to just stop himself. That was outstanding.
There's Cody Ashe, and he takes strike one.
What you can do about that? Hit one that hard.
Ground ball right side. It's going to be what a play by LaTroy Hawkins.
Really?
Because if that got by him, Ashe was going to be safe at first.
Yep.
2 outs here in the 9th inning.
Tremendous defensive plays by the Mets to save themselves all kinds of trouble. Tom said, if this gets by Hawkins, that's an amazing play. A guy his age, still be that athletic. They got a lot of miles on him in this game. David Wright, the veteran that he is, look what he does. No doubt. He comes running in. He knows the Hawkins just really extended himself running over there. He comes in, just take it easy. No, we'll slow down here a little bit.
Last chance for the Phils. It's John Mayberry with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning. Mayberry is 0 for 3. First pitch is low. Two balls and 1 strike to Mayberry. Swing and miss. 2-2. Ground ball up the third base line, and it'll go foul. Picked up by David Wright. Pop-up on the left side of the infield. David Wright is under it, and LaTroy Hawkins has closed out the Phils here at the bottom of the ninth inning. And the Mets have defeated the Phillies 6-4 in Game 1 of this 3-game series. I'll give some credit to the Mets bullpen. They held the Phils scoreless over 3 innings after DAISUKE MATSUZAKA scattered 4 runs over 6 innings. And for the first time since 2002, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion for the Phils this year, but first time since 2002, they will not finish at 500 or better in a season. Daniel Murphy is our Chevrolet player of the game. 3 for 5 tonight with 3 runs scored, an RBI, and a stolen base. So the Mets take Game 1. Our WB Mason delivery of the game. Well, you go back to the first inning when the Mets scored 3 runs.
Yeah, Phillies never led in this game. A run was in, a runner on base, and David Wright, his first game back since early August, picked right up where he left off against the Phillies, who he always seems to hit, especially in this ballpark. A 2-run home run. That's our WB Mason delivery of the game.
So the Mets take Game 1, 6-4. We will come back and wrap things up from Philadelphia right after this.